Merciful God, it's been a tough week with continued tensions rising in the Middle East, laws passed criminalizing homelessness, a presidential debate that has left most of us utterly bewildered, famine and wars, and violence and suffering everywhere. We beseech you, O God, to have mercy on us. Let the healing stories of your Son, Jesus, touch our hearts and remind us that we are your beloved children and that your power working in us can do infinitely more than we could ask or imagine. Amen. Please be seated. A couple of weeks ago, I had the honor of officiating at my son's wedding. He and his wife chose to have the ceremony at a campground in Midcoast, Maine, which is a place close to my son's heart. The weather was cloudy and windy and a tiny bit chilly, but nothing could interrupt the sunshine and warmth radiating from everyone's heart as the couple said, "I do." Many parents reminisce on their child's wedding day by taking a trip down memory lane. They remember the day they were born and watching them get their sea legs and learn to walk. They remember their first words, when they learned to read and write, and the friendships that nurtured them through life's challenges as they grew into adulthood. They remember the things that were life-giving and the things that brought them to their knees. Sitting on a porch rocker, gazing out at the ocean the day before my son's wedding, I remembered one occasion that at the time I didn't think we would get past. Some of you already know that both my children have a rare genetic disorder that requires an IV infusion of medication every 2 weeks for the rest of their lives. Thanks be to God, medical research and biotechnology have advanced enough to formulate life-sustaining medications for rare diseases. And I'm acutely aware that we are privileged enough to both live in a first-world country and have health insurance to assist with medical bills, pharmacy costs, and all the exhausting trips to the doctor. Tragically, this is not true for everyone. But there was a time when there was no treatment for the disorder, and as parents, we understood that life would hold many challenges for us as a family. This story about Jairus and his ailing daughter brings me right back to a moment in my own life when trusting in the healing power of Jesus became my life's quest. One hot and muggy September day, when Christopher was a freshman in high school, I received a phone call from the school nurse that he was suffering from some kind of heat exhaustion and needed to be picked up immediately. She was right, although it was way more complicated than that due to his disease process. But nevertheless, I flew to the school to scoop him up, calling the doctor along the way. I found him looking like a wet dish rag, curled up in fetal position on the floor of the nurse's office. The bare concrete floor provided a measure of cooling for his body, and he seemed more comfortable on the floor. One of the symptoms of his disease is that he lacks the proper temperature regulating system most of our bodies have, causing his core temp to rise quickly, but no way to regulate his own body temperature when it gets too hot. This rise in the body's core temp sets off a pain cascade in the extremities that can be excruciating until the core temp can be reduced. Fortunately, I was able to get him home, start a rigorous cooling process, and attempted to manage the pain crisis as I sat quietly with him for a few hours until he was better. By the time he was 15, and before any treatment was available, I was well schooled in managing the physical symptoms of this kind of health crisis with my son. But on this particular day, he expressed feelings that I was wildly unprepared to hear. He pleaded with me to make the pain stop and expressed how hard it was to stand on the side of life, living with this disease. He expressed hard feelings about life and death, his own specifically, and the agony of living with a body that isolated him from his peers and kept him from participating in the activities that normal teenagers participate in. He expressed feelings of shame, anger, and hopelessness. And while all of this was incredibly hard to hear, it was God's grace to be in this thin place of truth with another human being, especially my own child. We were in a very dark place that day, he and I, and a sense of helplessness overwhelmed me. All I could really do was be present to the agony Christopher was experiencing. I couldn't take away the disease, even if I could help relieve the pain somewhat, and I couldn't fix the emotional scars that were developing because of a chronic illness. But I could tend to them with love, compassion, and empathy. Over time, we managed the acuteness of that day's physical and emotional pain. But at the end of that day, I dropped to my knees and begged Jesus to heal my child. Like Jairus, I felt the presence of Jesus before me, listening, paying attention, and wanting to comfort and heal both of us. I imagined Jesus sitting with me at Christopher's bedside and laying healing hands on him, demanding the pain be cast out of him, and instructing Chris to find life again, to want to live, to stand on the side of life despite the circumstances of disease and despair. I wonder if this is what it was like for Jairus and his daughter. We are only given a few clues to how this healing miracle occurred in this story, but surely this was a family in crisis, managing grief and loss, not to mention that we don't know what the circumstances of this child's illness was in the first place. Amid the joy and rejoicing of the daughter's resurrected state, this family likely had a long way to go to recover from this traumatic event. The good news, of course, was that their strength and endurance for the healing journey ahead included Jesus. This family had an experience of God beyond their wildest imagination. And this is what these healing stories teach us. The reality of our circumstances may not change immediately or even at all, but healing is possible in some form when we open our hearts to God by following Jesus to the place where healing can begin. Transformation of life is available to us when we seek and find Jesus. This place will be different for all of us. For Jairus, did healing begin when he made the decision to seek out Jesus despite the backlash he might suffer from the religious elite to whom he belonged? Or did the healing begin when he was in the physical presence of Jesus, whose love emanated so far-reaching that even just touching the hem of his garment healed suffering people? Was it when other people came to Jairus' side to deliver the grave news of his daughter's death, accompanying him in the grief and sadness, reminding us that we need each other in tough times and in joyful times? Perhaps the healing wasn't recognized until his daughter got up from her deathbed and stepped back into life, when they were overcome with amazement, having experienced such a miracle. What matters is that Jairus, his family, even his community believed that healing was possible through Jesus. I believe that too. My healing journey is ongoing, as is the healing journey of my children. We try the best we can to stay close to Jesus, but even when we lose our way, feel lost or separated from God, we know that Jesus is never far away, and that all we need to do is stretch out our hand and ask for help. God is listening. God is listening. Hear the ancient words of the psalmist. O Lord my God, I cried out to you and you restored me to health. You brought me up, O Lord, from the dead. You restored my life as I was going down to the grave. Weeping may spend the night, but joy comes in the morning. Hear, O Lord, and have mercy upon me. O Lord, be my helper. Beloved, I urge you, cry out for what you need. Cry out for what this country needs, what the world needs, what all of creation needs. God is listening. Let your healing journey begin today if it hasn't already. Believe in miracles. Believe in the healing power of Jesus, and believe in yourself. You matter. You matter. You are a beloved child of God, and with the faith of a mustard seed, a little tiny mustard seed, you can move mountains, be repairers of the breach, and be the face of love in this sin-sick world. Cry out, my friends. This is the moment to fall at Jesus' feet and trust in his power to heal us, and our faith will make us well. In closing, I offer to you this prayer that a dear friend recently shared with me in this bewildering time. The prayer is written by Elizabeth Cunningham. You can only pray what's in your heart. So if your heart is being ripped from your chest, pray the tearing. If your heart is full of bitterness, pray it to the last dreg. If your heart is a river gone wild, pray the torrent. Or a lava flow scorching the mountain, pray the fire. Pray the scream in your heart, the fanning bellows. Pray the rage, the murder, and the mourning. Pray your heart into the great, quiet hands that can hold it like the small bird it is. Amen.